Your favorite songs, your favorite books, your favorite movies, paintings, and games. Even though they're all fairly different medias, I'll take a wild guess that there's at least one thing they all have in common. They were made by very creative people. Unfortunately, creativity is a scam. It's not a scam like it isn't real, but it is a scam like it doesn't work the way you think it does. There's an aura of misconception around it, and for the most part, we're kind of hardwired to think that way. It sounds counterintuitive, but the world really doesn't like creatives all that much. Let me explain. People really misconceive creativity in all sorts of ways, but there are three that particularly bother me. First, they think creativity cannot be learned, which I think it's quite funny because I believe learning is the only way to become more creative. Second is actually a consequence of the first. Since creativity cannot be learned, it can only be a talent, a gift you have to be born with. People convince themselves they can play an instrument, or learn how to draw, or even become a designer because they weren't born with the talent. That is just a really problematic perspective. It's unfair to themselves, it's unfair to other people, because obviously the thousands of hours they spend practicing are worthless. They're only good at what they do because they were born with the talent. But it's understandable why they feel this way, and it's not actually their fault. Well, it kinda is, but we'll come back to this later. And the third misconception is that creativity is something that is exclusive to artists and creators. Again, this is understandable. We even call them the creative industry. If that's your case, I'll show you a way to look at creativity from a new perspective, and perhaps it'll change that. Now, let's explore each one of these problems, starting with number one. Number one, how can learning make me creative, the library analogy, and also what the hell even is creativity? When I tell you that learning is the only way in which we become more creative, I don't mean that you should read a book or study or go to school. In fact, most educational systems are by nature detrimental to creativity. Formal education for everyone was born 200 years ago to meet the needs of industrialization, exceptionally prioritizing math, science, and practical skills. The goal was never to educate people. It was to create good factory workers who would show up to work on time, wouldn't disrupt the order, and would obey their managers. Factory owners and industrialists were fierce promoters of universal education, and a lot of that mentality is still alive in our schools today. So what I actually mean when I connect learning to creativity is that everything that can possibly benefit your creative thinking can be boiled down to a process of learning. Learning, not studying. Let me take you on a little journey. I once heard the term sensorial library being used to describe how complex tasting foods can be hard to enjoy for someone who's not used to those particular flavors. It's kind of the thing that explains how a wine expert can say things like,
"There's a fruity, almost citrusy aroma to it, and the taste has notes of honey and oak trees on a Sunday morning with a freshly cut grass aftertaste."
And then you sip it and it's like, yeah man, it really tastes like wine. And it basically means your sensorial library is still a little bit empty. Until you've added enough flavors to your catalog, you won't be able to understand all the nuances in a more complex food. It'll just taste like wine. And that is the perfect analogy for what creativity is and how it works. This is just grape juice, by the way. Creativity is an infinitely big library inside your head. When you're born, there are only a couple of books about crying and pooping, but as you grow up and experience new things, you get to add brand new books to your collection, or sometimes even updated editions of the ones you already have. Now, whenever you have to make a decision about something, your brain, which is basically the fastest librarian in the entire universe, consults your entire collection of books and tries to make the best decision possible. Using your creative library to actually create something works the exact same way. When a painter makes a brush stroke on the canvas, their brain is making a decision based on all the books they have. Painting, writing, designing, any creative task is nothing more than a mashup of all the books you have on your collection. And this giant mashup, some books might feel out of place and unrelated to what you're doing. Places you visited, foods you've ate, conversations you've had. But other books are super practical and technical and exactly what you think you need. Knowledge on your equipment, the work of other professionals, college classes. But your brain knows better. It knows that every book you have can make things just a little more spicy and interesting. All your books play a role, and even the most unrelated experiences can shift you in a different direction, even when you're not conscious about it. Sometimes we create something that strongly references other creators' work without being aware of it. It's called plagiarism. No, I'm just kidding. Well, it actually is. But this is also called cryptomnesia. Cryptomnesia is an implicit memory phenomenon in which people mistakenly believe that a current thought or idea is a product of their own creation, when in fact they have encountered it previously and then just forgotten about it. And even though we're not aware of it, our brains are. It's like it was an old dusty book that was forgotten for a long time in the bottom shelf of the library. That's why musicians sometimes unintentionally copy melodies from other musicians. In 1979, Rod Stewart was sued for plagiarism by Brazilian musician Jorge Benjor. The song in question was Do You Think I'm Sexy? From his 1978 album Blondes Have More Fun, which had its main melody copied from Taj Mahal, released in 1972 by Jorge Ben. Rod Stewart lost the case and gave up the royalties for the song, but argued that the plagiarism was unconscious. He was in Rio de Janeiro during 1978's Carnival with Elton John and Freddie Mercury, and Taj Mahal, which had a re-released version in 1976, was playing everywhere. I won't play you the songs because of copyright, but it's very clearly the same melody. Whether you believe that or not, unconscious plagiarism is really a thing. People copy each other without knowing all the time. A little secret between you and me: ideas are very rarely unique. Originality? Sort of a myth. Everything is just a transformed, reimagined version of something else. And I know, this sounds so not creative, which begs the question, is creativity all that special as we think it is? Well, maybe we can answer that on problem number 2. Number 2, is creativity a special talent you have to be born with? And also, why does it make me feel so frustrated so often? Chances are, if you work with anything slightly related to creative work, you had someone tell you that they wouldn't be fit to do your job because they were not creatives. Chances are, they may have also justified that by saying they weren't born with it. I know I heard that a lot. For example, I play some instruments and I'm not even good at it, but every now and again, someone comes up to me and say that they tried to learn the guitar once, but they weren't born with the talent. Like, yeah, sure, you tried for what? 2 days? A week? But why is that? Why do we insist on mystifying creativity as something almost unnatural? Why do we struggle to see it as a skill we can develop and nurture? Well, some evidence points us to a specific direction. The world doesn't like creatives all that much. We have a negative bias towards creative ideas. Even though that sounds like a stupid thing to say, over and over again through history, we've seen revolutionary ideas and their creators being first ridiculed and rejected by the media, the government, and the people. It's only after these ideas have gained acceptance and recognition, years, sometimes decades later, that their creators are given the proper credit. When Thomas Edison invented the electrical light bulb in the 19th century, the British Parliament said it was unworthy of the attention. In 1902, the Washington Post declared that the popularity of the wheel is doomed, referring to bicycles. In the 80s, the New York Times dismissed laptops, saying that somehow the microcomputer industry has assumed that everyone would love to have a keyboard grafted on as an extension of their fingers. It just is not so. Oh boy, were they wrong. A research conducted by organizational psychologists at Cornell University found that we have a negative bias towards creative ideas when compared to more practical ones. They say that while people strongly endorse a positive view of creativity, scholars have long been puzzled by the finding that organizations, scientific institutions, and decision makers routinely reject creative ideas, even when supporting creativity as an important goal. We know that creativity is good, but we're afraid of it. Creative ideas make us leave our psychological comfort zone. They break from tradition and challenge our existing ways of thinking. And we don't like leaving the comfy zone. It's hard, takes effort. And since we're so negatively biased against creative ideas, they are also not encouraged, especially in schools and universities. Research documents that teachers dislike students who exhibit curiosity and creative thinking, even though teachers acknowledge creativity as an important educational goal. And of course they are. Creative students are more prone to disrupt the order in class. They're more likely to challenge the thoughts and ideas of the professor. So this behavior is consistently discouraged. Even your job hates creativity. Creative employees and creative ideas are expensive because creativity is based on uncertainty, and companies hate uncertainty. It's not something that is profitable. But a negative bias is not the only thing that's widening the gap between us and creativity.
The last decade saw the rise of social media. They have taken the center stage of most of our social exchanges, completely changing the way we communicate and interact with the world. On a creative note, never before in history was art this easy to access. Art is made by and for millions of people around the globe. You are a phone screen away from knowing what your favorite artist is up to on a daily basis. You just have to click follow. And that happens completely for free. Cinema, painting, music, theater, photography, even design. If it exists, it is on social media.
And this is incredible. Free access to art and culture are essential aspects of our development, not only as creatives and human beings, but also as societies. But social media platforms are not just roses. While they can be great sources of inspiration, they can also be detrimental to some aspects of creativity. On the other side of the coin, the easiness of sharing our lives online gave rise to a flood of unreal images of success and happiness. We're hard-pressed against the wall by these distorted ideals which, despite constantly chasing after, we never seem to be able to reach them. Well, we're not supposed to. The happiest life, the most expensive car, the prettiest art. So many traps are laid out in the way these platforms work. Comparing ourselves to other creators, setting unfair expectations for our own work, basing our success on metrics that are questionable, to say the least. Likes, shares, comments. When you try to measure how good of a creator you are, when you try to gauge your creativity through social media, the only possible outcome is frustration. And I feel like we're more frustrated than ever. Even I find myself hostage to the YouTube studio. I check it every hour. It's impossible not to feel frustrated when something you put so much effort into does not reflect on a silly number going up on your phone screen. It takes a strong mind to just ignore a bad performing video and move on to the next one. And though I'm sure every creator and artist feels like this at some point, they are not the only ones with creative problems. And that's what we're going to see in number 3.
Number 3. The dangerous assumption of creativity equals art, the rules of the world, and also the mathematics of creativity.
Creativity is a skill that is often associated and sometimes even restricted to art. That is understandable. Even I, through the course of this video, have only used artistic expressions as examples of creativity. It's just the easiest and most relatable way to explain it. But there is a problem with that assumption, because it implies that there is a limit to what creativity can be. If you're not an artist, then you're not allowed to be creative. And again, I feel like this problem has one of its roots in the way most of us are educated. This disconnection with creativity is further increased by strict rules and sober environment of classes, Grading systems that are based on standardized test scores that work more like a test of memory rather than a test of intelligence, and even the lack of art and culture in the school environment, leading us to a perception that intelligence means academic ability. Our perception of intelligence shouldn't be confined to whether someone knows math or geography or knows how to write in fancy academic language.
If we go back to the library analogy, art would be like this huge section with lots and lots of books. But you can't say that the art section is the whole library, because it isn't. Your library might even have bigger sections if you're a lawyer or an engineer. There is creativity in working out a solution for a construction project or having your client win the case.
But it's unfair to place all the blame on the shoulders of schools and universities. There's one innate quality to the world of the arts that makes it a special place, a thriving environment for creativity to flourish. You might have heard of it. It's called creative freedom. The world we live in is confined by rules, whether they are man-made like the Constitution or criminal law, or just natural laws of the world, like the laws of physics. We often talk about freedom, but human existence is also very much defined by its limitations. We cannot fly, we cannot breathe underwater, we cannot change our skin once this one gets too old. And for the most part, most people's jobs walk on the same path. When we talk about STEM, that is, science, technology, engineering, and math, the rules, laws, and limitations are not only fundamental characteristics, they're also guiding principles. It's a sober world with concrete rules, and you need to be aware of the limitations you're confined to, especially if what you do may affect other people's lives. Mathematics is not known for its creative freedom, and neither is medicine or accounting. Now, arts, well, that's a whole new deal.
When we enter the world of the arts, the perspective is completely shifted. The rules are few and scarce and begging to be broken. If you want humans to fly or breathe underwater, go for it. Do it in games, movies, or paintings. The concrete reality of the world falls apart and makes room for a fertile ground where creativity thrives, and the only limit remaining is your own imagination. Any noise can become music. You're not confined by instruments or chords, even though they exist. Anything visual can be framed. You're not confined by tools and principles, even though they exist. Inexistence is itself inexistent. Everything is real and alive, if you want it to be. Be whoever you like and go wherever you want. You are one virtual reality away.
Now, even though it's comfortable to imagine these two worlds as complete opposites, the reality is that they coexist in great harmony. Science and technology have always been great supporters of the arts. Music benefits from the knowledge of acoustics, sound engineering, and the technology behind audio equipment. Painting entered a whole new era with computers and tablets. But also, if you paint on canvas, chemistry is present in the development of ink, and physics allows us to better understand color and light refraction. Not to mention, they also gave birth to photography. The tech behind virtual reality is supporting the rise of new forms of art and paving the way for the most immersive art experiences we've ever had. So, it feels like there's a lot of space outside the artistic world for everyone to be creative. In fact, if we look back on the last 200 years, every single creative innovation that changed some aspect of the world was fueled by science and math. Radio, cars, satellites, smartphones, the internet, they fundamentally changed how we live our lives. And despite not being art inventions, they are still staples of creativity. And if that doesn't convince you that creativity is not restricted to art, I honestly don't know what will. Creativity is a lifestyle. I know this is a cliche thing to say, but it really is. It is a state of mind. It's not something simple, it's not something easy, it's something you have to hone and perfect your entire life. And it's also endless. You will never have all the creativity there is. It's something that is unique and individual to each one of us. But the best part, creativity is for everyone. Doesn't matter who you are, where you live, and what you do. There is always space for creativity. Creativity is not something out of this world. It sure is complex, but I hope you can see it with different eyes now. If you enjoyed this video, you might also like this one here. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comment section. Check the description to see how you can support the channel. Have a great day. Bye.